Something felt off about this from the opening bell. Dave Allen barely lets his hand go, but Hrgovic never fully looked like a man trying to make a statement either. And the more I think about this fight, the more I think it was psychological as much as technical. Today I'm reviewing the David and Goliath card, headlined by Filip Hrgovic and Dave Allen. Always like to mention a couple of the undercard fights. We start off with Uzbekistan fighter Asadkhuja Muydinkhujaev versus Alexis Torres. Asadkhuja is an Olympic gold medalist, two-time world gold medalist. Excellent former amateur. The Uzbeks, they are a particularly talented bunch. And I mentioned Umatalia last week. Remember these names. Straight away, you could see the class. Great use of angles, offensively and defensively strong, can mix it up, but likes to keep on the move, keep his opponents thinking. The footwork is absolutely gorgeous. There's so much I could say about this kid. A little bit of Usyk spice in those feints, making Torres, reluctant to engage. It was really, really hard for him to counter. Every time Torres tried to work, Asadkhuja's feet just took him out of danger. And that's the thing. He never really looked like he got out of second gear. But you could see the IQ, the rhythm, the timing, the musicality in the footwork. By the later rounds, Torres just looked mentally exhausted, trying to follow him around the ring. Total outclass. If this kid doesn't become a world champion, I think people will be very disappointed. Remember the name, Asadkhuja Muydinkhujaev. Louie defended and added the Commonwealth strap to his collection after a unanimous decision against Ahmed Hatim. Chief support, Michael Gomez Jr. versus Lee McGregor for the vacant WBA international lightweight title. I went to the pre-fight presser and I was a little disappointed not to get a few interviews with the undercard because, listen, Gomez Jr., he's a character. 7-week turnaround after he stopped the favourite Jordan Flynn in his last outing. Ahead of the fight, he said he was happy to get knocked out, but willing to have a shootout on the way down. So we knew this had the makings of an action-packed fight. It didn't disappoint. McGregor dropped in the fourth. Gomez Jr. went on to win by TKO. Hi, my name is Jacqui-Lee Pryce, former boxer, and I spent many years in the sport as a boxing coach and judge. Anyway, back to the main event. Filip Hrgovic versus Dave Allen for the vacant IBF Intercontinental and the WBA Continental Gold Heavyweight titles. Allen came into this fight enjoying a little bit of momentum after the Johnny Fisher win. Last fight didn't really go his way, but he'd spoken in the pre-fight presser about overtraining in his last camp and said that he finally felt like he got this one right physically. So people were expecting a better version of Dave Allen. Now, obviously, Hrgovic was the favourite, but Allen regularly outperforms expectations. And some people thought he could drag Hrgovic into, uncomfortable exchanges and maybe expose some of those defensive flaws because Hrgovic can sometimes be vulnerable to counters. But it was still a massive ask for Allen. Hrgovic is a man who's operated at world level. He fought Zhang Zhang in a world title eliminator, got dropped, recovered, and he still won that fight. He also gave Dubois a few problems early on in their fight, and that's the only loss of his career so far. Stylistically, Hrgovic resembles those, old school Eastern European amateur systems. He's quite upright, heavy jab, straight shots, power, structure. He isn't flashy, and some people call this style boring, but Hrgovic, he does the basics and he does them very, very well. He maintains structure and output under fatigue. And whilst I was watching the fight, I was thinking, he reminded me of one of the Klitschko's. Afterwards, I found out that he sparred Vladimir Klitschko. So you can definitely see that influence there. Round one, straight away, Hrgovic comes out trying to control the range with this jab. Allen actually starts fairly well. He's leaning off to his right, jabbing to the body, changing levels nicely. He tries to detonate a big overhand right early, but it's telegraphed. And Hrgovic could see it coming a mile off, dips the shoulder slightly, takes the sting out of it with the lead hand. And immediately you start to see the pattern. Hrgovic controlling the distance, straight shots, down the pipe, 1-2, jab right hand. Allen's moving his head well early. He's taking his head off the centre line, popping a few jabs to head and body, found his range. There's a good use of levels from Allen early on. He's jabbing to the body and then he goes upstairs. It's important against somebody like Hrgovic. Allen is trying to bypass the taller fighter's reach, open up his tight guard, and hopefully break down the guard over the course of the fight. So when Allen did that early, he was actually, he was finding a decent range at times. The problem was he never really built phases off of it. He'd have a little successful entry, then reset again. There wasn't enough sustained pressure after the initial entry to really force Hrgovic into discomfort. But Hrgovic, he keeps going back to that educated jab. And honestly, that jab is the centerpiece of his entire game. He disrupts rhythm, sets tempo, forces opponents backwards, creates a line for the right hand. And you start seeing those long levers finding their way home. And there were a few borderline shots around the back of the head throughout the fight. Allen complained about them during the exchanges, and Jamie Moore acknowledged them in the corner. Later on, those shots can absolutely scramble the senses and affect you long term in the fight. But technically, Hrgovic was still methodical, jab to the body, straight backhand, hook upstairs, backing Allen up consistently. And one thing I noticed though, Hrgovic is quite readable at times. He exits in straight lines, he's upright. There are opportunities there for straight counters if you can get your timing and your range right. But Allen was struggling to find that range. And that overhand right, he kept telegraphing it. Hrgovic could see it coming every time. The pace itself was actually quite slow. Hrgovic didn't look particularly explosive or have a spin in his step. It was a little bit laboured compared to some of his other performances. But even at that pace, he controlled the fight. Good first round for Hrgovic. Round two. Allen has never really been a volume puncher. He likes to absorb, draw mistakes, counter. He's usually, quite patient and crafty with his timing. And there's one nice moment where Hrgovic jabs to the body and Allen counters with a right over the top. But overall, he's just waiting too long. And this is where things started to get interesting psychologically, because Allen's output wasn't devastatingly low on paper, but the effectiveness completely collapsed. That's when he's hesitating. You can see it. Allen's feinting, thinking, waiting, but not fully committing. Meanwhile, Hrgovic just keeps peppering away. Hrgovic's jab is absolutely insane. It's deceivingly long, and opponents, they think they're out of distance, and then he just turns the shoulder slightly, gets that extra extension on the shot, and then suddenly, when they think they're out of range, they're actually in range. And that's important psychologically because it makes it really difficult to get inside. You're second guessing your range. And against a big upright heavyweight who's constantly pumping that lead hand, that can slow your output down very quickly. And when you look at the numbers, it kind of makes sense. Hrgovic has a 7-inch reach advantage. That's 7 inches over Dave Allen. So when you combine that kind of length with an educated jab, it can become really difficult for an opponent to find safe entries. Hrgovic starts mixing it up, head, body, double jab, right hand. A favourite of Hrgovic, everything behind structure. Just see, Allen covering up a little bit here. And the thing about Hrgovic is, no disrespect, he's actually quite readable at times. Although he walks his opponents down behind, good fundamentals, he does things in a fairly straightforward way. One of the biggest technical concerns with Hrgovic is that he can be hit. He's upright. He exits on straight lines. He can be open to straight counters. Now, obviously, it's easier said than done when you're dealing with someone that big, with that kind of reach and constantly throwing. You can see the opportunities there. The problem was Allen was really struggling to get inside safely enough to take advantage of them. Now, on the inside, usually Dave Allen is very comfortable there, roughing opponents up, sitting on their chest, working short, sharp uppercuts and hooks. But he had absolutely no physical effect on Hrgovic in the clinch. You know, Dave Allen is known for his toughness, his composure, his survival instincts, and usually he can make a fight very awkward through timing. But there's real low punch output here from him. And even when he does counter, it's often just a single or double shot combination, and there's no real phases to the work. He'll land something, then reset, go again. And Allen almost looks content to just sit on the ropes, jab, draw Hrgovic in, but then he just allows Hrgovic to hold position there and work away. And I think once Allen realised he couldn't physically move Hrgovic backwards, he started seeing him drift into more survival mode. Round 3, straight away, Hrgovic on the outside, enticing Allen in. Allen tries to close the distance a little bit more this round. And honestly, he had slightly more success when he jabbed to the body and changed the levels. Because every time he jabbed from out of range, he gets caught on the counters over the top. And another thing, Allen wasn't always stepping into range behind his shots. Ahmed was willing him to step in because he was sometimes just falling short. And even when he's throwing that bowl over right hand, he's chucking it without real mean intentions. I wanted him to get his body weight behind that shot. Allen's just slowly walking forward, getting picked off with straight shots, bam, bam, straight down the middle. Followed up with lovely work from Hrgovic, who just starts slowly turning the screws. And at this point, the fight completely shifts into survival mode. And this is where the stats start telling the story. Round 1, Allen landed 32% of his shots. Round 2, that dropped to about 18%. But by round 3, it dropped to 11%. And the jab numbers are even more revealing. By round 3, Allen landed just 6% of his jabs. That tells you that Hrgovic has completely established control of the lead hand, the distance, the tempo. And once a boxer loses confidence in the jab, it's becomes very, very difficult psychologically to get inside. That's when you're seeing hesitation. Allen's using all those old school defensive tactics. He's rolling, he's covering up, he's slipping and sliding, trying to survive. And to be fair, defensively, Allen is quite clever. He's durable, tough, composed under pressure. But offensively, unfortunately, everything had disappeared. No phases to the work, no sustained attacks, no urgency. And sometimes in a fight, you've got to take your chance. Hrgovic is ranked in the top 10 of heavyweight boxers. Imagine thinking and trying to force an upset. Finally, Hrgovic is just clubbing away with heavy shots and power punches, methodical beatdown. You can actually see the referee half an eye on the fight and half on Jamie Moore in the corner because everyone can feel where this is heading. And the key thing is, Allen wasn't actually fighting back enough. And okay, listen, you can argue that Allen was sort of rolling with the punches to an extent, but a fighter has to show something. They have to fight back. That's one of the rules. A fighter can't just take undue punishment. And unlike last week, where people were arguing that, Fabio Wardy took undue punishment, at least Wardy was still firing back with a little something. Arguably, people were waiting for him to pull something out of the bag, like he's done in past fights. Now, personally, I have a theory about that. But if you haven't seen that review, check it out. Anyway, I actually think Jamie Moore got it absolutely right. Yeah, even Hrgovic said that he thought that the stoppage was right. He said that he couldn't move me in the clinch, he couldn't wrestle with me, he couldn't do anything. And that's important because it links directly back to what we were talking about earlier. Usually Dave Allen is very good at making fights messy on the inside, but Hrgovic completely neutralized him physically. And the more I think about this fight, the more I think it was psychological as much as technical. Boxing is deeply mental. Confidence affects punch commitment. Hesitation affects reaction. And once a fighter slips into survival mode instead of winning mode, output can disappear very quickly. Dave Allen has built a career around being honest, self-depreciating, and embracing the underdog role. And people love him for it. And honestly, this part of me respects him massively for it. But elite fighters also need a level of delusion sometimes. I've seen fighters with less skill than Dave Allen talk themselves into performances simply through belief and mentality. And at elite level, there's a fine line between being realistic and, subconsciously accepting defeat before the fight even starts. And on the flip side, Hrgovic didn't look like a man trying to make a statement either. Yes, it was one-sided. Yes, he dominated. But emotionally, that performance seemed a little flat compared to his other fights. And after the fight, we find that the Moses Atauma fight is basically signed. Hrgovic admitted it himself. So maybe psychologically, this fight maybe became more about a stepping stone fight rather than a statement one. And maybe that's why this fight never fully came alive. And interestingly, Dave Allen kind of confirmed some of that in his own post-fight review. He said he felt good coming into the fight, but basically after getting hit in the back of the head in the first round, he got buzzed. And he also said that he'd hoped to push Hrgovic around, but Hrgovic pushed him around. And his words were, "Fucking hell, this is hard work." And honestly, that single line probably sums up the fight perfectly. One man fighting like he's trying to survive, another man trying to fight like he's not trying to lose the next opportunity. That creates a very strange heavyweight fight psychologically. What do you think? Has Allen's self-depreciating mentality actually worked against him at elite level? Or is he just being brutally honest about where he's at? And what are your thoughts on Hrgovic versus Atauma? Stan Dubois, he basically called out Moses Atauma on behalf of his son. So that's another great fight to look forward to. Which one would you rather see first? If you want an authentic voice in boxing, don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment in the comments section. And thank you, to everybody who, showed me love last week. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.